Well, good morning, brothers and sisters. Today we're looking at Proverbs 23. I want to draw our attention to Proverbs 23, verse 9. Proverbs says, "Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of his words," or your words. I don't know if you've ever been to a highly competitive, rowdy college football rivalry, but I've been to quite a few in my day, whether that was South Carolina versus Clemson, South Carolina versus Georgia, or other schools throughout the years. But if you walk into a highly competitive opposing team's stadium and they find out you've got the other team's colors on, you just need to be prepared to be taunted. You need to be prepared to be yelled at, barked at, made fun of, or whatever. And then on top of that, of course, in some of these college football stadiums, people can be inebriated. They can have a little bit of too much cough syrup, if you know what I mean. And to have any kind of reasonable dialogue with someone in that state of mind that is obsessed with their team, that is under the influence, can be a lost cause. Well, guys, this kind of simple and almost silly illustration, I think, is very similar to what our proverb talks about today. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of his words, or your words. Well, what is a fool? Well, remember, the book of Proverbs lays out a path, the path of the wise and the path of the fool. Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." In other words, really one of the mark of a fool is that they don't fear God. They are not grounded with the wisdom of God because first of all, they don't fear God. They're right in their own eyes. They don't put the Lord first in their heart and in their life. But the fool is also marked by an unwillingness to listen and reason. I think Proverbs 18:2, it says, "A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his own opinion." I mean, think about that proverb there in light of today's proverb. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding. In other words, he or she doesn't even want to hear the other person's side of the story. He or she doesn't even want to consider the validity of what someone else is saying. The only thing they have in their mind is expressing their own opinion, their own agenda, their own settled convictions. Even Proverbs 26:4-5 gives that kind of unique Hebrew parallelism of opposites. So basically, two opposite truths that can be applied well in different contexts. Proverbs 26:4-5 says, "Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you become like him." In other words, the mark of a fool is that they have a set agenda, a set opinion. Proverbs 29:11 says, "A fool gives full vent to his spirit." In other words, they just kind of say what's on their mind without really any filter or thoughtfulness or prudence. Their words just kind of spew out. They say what they feel, and there really isn't much guarding in their words. And they justify themselves. They justify themselves in what they're saying because how they feel and what their opinion is the ultimate thing that matters. Not the fear of the Lord, not love for neighbor, but really just a love for themselves. Well, the Proverbs 23:9 says, "Do not speak in the hearing of a fool." In other words, the proverb is raising our awareness that there are some people and some conversations that we should not waste our words on. So have you ever been in a conversation, or let's just say you attempted to be in a conversation, that when you left it, you said, "Well, that was a waste of time," or, "Well, that didn't go well"? Well, why is it that some conversations or attempts to have conversations leave us saying that? Well, you have to think about it. A conversation requires at least two or more parties having the opportunity to speak, to reason, ask questions, to listen. It takes two to tango, if you will. If it's just one person venting, if it's just one person sharing what's on their heart, if it's just one person expressing their own opinion and dominating the conversation, then that's not a conversation. And if a fool is in a conversation, one of the things that mark a fool is they don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't even want to consider the validity of what you have to say. In fact, you might have amazing, wonderful, wise, biblical things to share, thoughtful things to share, but they're going to despise it. They're going to treat it with contempt. They may not even hear anything you're about to say. It's going to go through one ear, out the other, or they're not even going to let you speak. They'll speak over you. They'll dismiss everything you say, take everything out of context. And that's why the proverb says, do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. So brothers and sisters, think about that today. Have you paused and thought about, before entering into a dialogue with another person, whether or not you should? Are you someone who's prone to just hastily enter into conversations simply because you think you could out-argue another person? Or I was just say you've even got, you're in a good place yourself. You have things you genuinely want to share and you are ready to listen. But have you considered where the other person is spiritually? Where the other person is emotionally? Do they seem to have a track record or pattern of being good listeners or bad listeners? Are they really angry? Are they argumentative? Are they someone who actually is willing to reason with you? That's why the Apostle Paul, when he would go to different towns in the New Testament, it says he went into the synagogue of the Jews and he reasoned with them from the scriptures that Jesus was the Christ. In other words, it's sitting down, it's having a dialogue, looking to God's word as our authority and truth, and to consider what it says in light of the situation at hand. Well, friends, that's what we want. Whether we're in a dispute, debate, or disagreement with someone, we want it to be reasonable. We want it to be a conversation where both parties feel heard and respected and are able to have that conversation. But sometimes, friends, it's not even possible. For one reason or another, the other person is not going to listen to what you have to say. And so you and I have to have discernment, right? Is this person marked by wisdom or folly? Does this person seem to exude a pattern of only expressing their opinion? Or do they have any evidence that they actually do consider the other person's feelings, opinions, or thoughts? And I think a good challenge on this one, brothers and sisters, is this. Let's not look at ourselves as the hero, right? Are there at times that we are acting like the fool? Just think over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. In conversations you've had that have been very important, did you find yourself being the one who dominates the conversation? Were you a good listener? Were I a good listener? Were we seeking to really consider the other person's opinion, or were we simply expressing our own? Because friends, sometimes we could be the ones who are acting the fool. We could be the ones who are despising the good sense of someone else's words. And so we should also ask the Lord to help us see where maybe our heart and our mind is not in the right place. So how does this proverb apply to you today? Is there an email that you're not sure whether you should respond to? Is there a conversation with an employee that's weighing on your heart, but you're not sure if it's just going to be a waste of time or it's going to be productive? Is there someone in your local church or in your family that you think really needs to hear X, Y, and Z, but you're not sure if they're going to hear you or not? Well, you know what the answer is go to the Lord, ask for his wisdom, ask him to show any fear of man that could be in your heart. Turn from that. Think about what I'm wanting to share. Is it true? Is it praiseworthy? Is it biblical? And is it for this other person's well-being and good? And as I go into this conversation, am I prepared? Am I prepared to listen myself? And if the other person is not willing to listen, they're not willing to dialogue, they're only willing to argue and debate and express their own opinion, then you and I have to be willing to obey what Proverbs 23:9 says. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool. In other words, don't enter the conversation. Don't respond to the email. Don't even have that meeting. You're going to waste your words. You're going to waste your time. And ultimately, it could even lead you into sin because it gets you angry and more discouraged. So, may the Lord give each one of us discernment and wisdom of what that would look like today. God bless.